And welcome to Boca Vista. Thank you for joining us today. My name's Steve. We got my partner in crime over here, Adam. We're going to be going through a little bit of Seinfeld today. If this is your first time joining us, thanks for coming out. Just to bring you up to speed, welcome to Del Boca Vista is a Seinfeld companion podcast. What does that mean? It means we're going through the entire series, episode by episode, in order, in excruciating detail. So if you love Seinfeld, this is absolutely going to be something that you'll have a good time with. If you don't love Seinfeld, get the hell out of here. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. One thing that came to me while you were doing the introduction. So am I like the Jerry to your George, or am I the George to your Jerry? How does that work? Man. Who's who here? I think you are obviously Jerry. You have way more of your life together and a swag, and I'm the balding incompetent. You know, Adam's getting upset.
Actually, okay, when I go back and edit this, I'm going to put something to cover up that moment where you showed your head, so that way people have to pay extra to see that. We'll save that for the Patreon or the OnlyFans or whatever.
Who would have thought that nature would be working in my favor on this one?
Right. You got to pay extra to see the head, people.
Bald is beautiful and bald's profitable, baby.
Before we get into this week's episode, I do want to give a couple of special shout outs. We started the show. Our last episode was our very first. So this is the second one. And an idea that we had was, hey, let's check out some Seinfeld groups on Facebook, because Facebook sucks at almost everything except groups. Groups are actually pretty good. I don't know if you agree with that or not, Adam, but I think groups are probably the only thing that Facebook does well. So we were scoping out some Seinfeld groups and stuff. And number one, I just like to be in some just because I love talking Seinfeld. But two, we thought it'd be great. Hey, these are our people. These are people that we can share this show that is all about showing love to Seinfeld. We can share this show with them. Well, that didn't go as well as we would have liked, because
turns out they hate us.
Yeah, the majority of Facebook groups were like, get the hell out of here. But I would like to give a special heartfelt thank you to Seinfeld Sign Language. I'm going to try to remember to put that name up on the screen somewhere. Here. Where did we do it? Right here in the middle. Wait. I don't even know where I'm pointing. Seinfeld Sign Language, the very first group to welcome us in the promotion of this podcast. Thank you so much. Seinfeld-isms. Seinfeld-isms and Seinfeld fanatics on Facebook. If you're a Seinfeld lover, you should check out these groups because the place is just lousy with Seinfeld obsessed people like your friend and mine over here, Adam, and myself, obviously. So thank you so much, Seinfeld Sign Language, Seinfeld-isms, and Seinfeld fanatics. You guys are super cool. So, and again, if you're on Facebook, check those groups out. You'll have a good time. This week we're talking about The Stakeout, which it's kind of funny. Adam and I were talking about this before we started recording here. Adam has been watching Seinfeld on Netflix. I have been watching Seinfeld on the DVDs. The thing that I did not realize until just this morning after prepping for today's show is like, hold on. The episodes are in a different order on Netflix than they are on the DVDs. And there's a reason for that. The male unbonding was the second episode that was shot of Seinfeld. However, The Stakeout was the second episode that was aired. So I had to scramble and get ready for this episode instead, which thankfully I've been watching the heck out of these episodes over the last few weeks here, just to make sure I'm super familiar with them and get my thoughts percolating on what we want to talk about. So I thought that was just kind of an interesting thing to share. It actually turns out that this episode as the first true episode of Seinfeld, because the pilot doesn't really count. But as the first true episode of Seinfeld did really well. And I think it's because it's a pretty relatable concept, don't you, Adam?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I was going to say there is some bitter irony in the fact that I went overboard in analyzing this episode to get ready for this episode. And it would be great if you would have been like, all right, man, are you ready to go to unbonding? And I would have been like, yeah, we're going to. Wait, what? And then you're over here with the fountain of knowledge and Adam, did you know that this line came from the 1942 critically acclaimed movie? And I'm going to be over here like, he doesn't like turkey roll.
Yeah, turkey roll. I love that line.
So I'm glad that we don't have to worry about that.
So stay tuned for when we eventually talk about male unbonding, because I think I have a pretty funny turkey roll joke that I'm going to be saving for that episode.
I always want to like say it to the tune of Tootsie Roll, that song.
I guess I don't know that song.
Let me see you turkey roll. Do the turkey roll.
I don't know that song.
No.
Is it from like an old commercial?
Roll. It's like a wedding song.
A wedding song?
You know, like one of the songs that the DJ, like, contractually has to play
like
during the dance portion of the reception.
This topic, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking
about. Edit it out!
No, we're leaving it in, folks.
Edit it out!
If you know the Tootsie Roll song, okay, wait, comment section. Let us know if you know the Tootsie Roll song. Also, let us know if you don't know the Tootsie Roll song.
Let us see your Tootsie Roll.
So we can, well, I don't know about that, but
turkey roll.
This way we can determine who is more weird, Adam for knowing that song or me for having no idea. But so the stakeout, the second episode aired, or the first true episode aired of Seinfeld. First thing off the bat, stand up, a lot shorter in this one.
For sure.
A lot. We talked about this in our last episode. The stand up sections were so long in the original episode. And it's not that the stand up is bad. I'm not complaining about that. I don't feel like either of us were complaining. It was just that it was so much. And what did we say? It was more than a quarter of the episode.
Yeah, it was just under 6 minutes, I think, is what you said.
Yeah.
And it was like a 22-minute episode or something like that.
Yeah, 24-minute episode. I remember that because I remember thinking, wow, that's kind of long compared to what they do now. But it's also probably because there weren't as many ads back then, maybe. Everyone's got to like milk everything for all the ads that they're worth now. Everything is ad crazy now. But yeah, it was more than a quarter of the episode was stand up. These sections were so much shorter, which I really feel like, because again, this was a huge weakness of the pilot, is the pacing in the pilot was excruciating.
Yeah.
And the stand-up sections of this episode definitely kept the show rolling a lot better.
And like such a weird plot to have for a pilot of a show too. Not to go back to episode 1 or anything, because I know we analyzed that one to death, but of all the things that you're writing a show for, just to have that as the backbone of what you're basing the whole sitcom on is just like, wow. But maybe that was the point. I don't know.
Well, and I'd made the comment in the last episode that it almost felt like a mini-sode or mini episode because of how heavy it was on stand up.
Yeah.
And this one
true.
Definitely felt more like a TV show. Now, of course, there was still stand up in it, but it felt more like just a TV show, I guess, because the story, well, you got to think when a quarter of the episode is taken up, you can only have so much story in it. This one was a lot heavier on story, which I think the show really needed to do, because that's when, I love Seinfeld. I love his stand up. I've gone to see him live. But Seinfeld as a show, combining the geniuses of Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David and a fantastic team of writers, they really needed to be able to dig into the show. The stand-up, I think, is a nice little foundation because it's about Jerry, and Jerry's a comedian. But make it this one thing that sort of sets the tone, and then just go into the episode with the characters, and that's where it really shines.
Yeah, I agree with that.
First thing I noticed, though, Jerry's blazer. I don't know if you really paid any attention to this or not, but his blazer in that stand-up scene is like, whoa. Again, it's one of those things that's so a product of its time. you look back and you think, I guarantee you that thing's not hanging out in his closet anywhere, because that is not the sort of blazer that gets saved.
That's so funny. I feel like you definitely like this is just how you and I function differently when we watch like, and it's so weird because like I'm very much like a closed person, but like I never notice any of these things, and like you're like, did you notice Jerry's sweatpants didn't seem like they fit him right? You know, or like this blazer is just so out of touch with how it is today, and I'm just like, why aren't I getting that? I'm the, you know, like it's so weirdly opposite.
And it's
But now
funny
that
because
you
I'm not
say
really
that-
a clothes guy. You know, you
Right.
say, you know, but like, man, that blazer, as soon as I saw it, I'm like, oh man. Oh, real quick side note. We like showing the little kind of snippets of the show down here. YouTube does not like that. So I had went through 13 failed attempts of uploading the first episode before we finally got one that was approved by YouTube. And basically what had to happen is I had to trim the hell out of any of the little snippets from the show. So we'll show you little snippets down there, but they're probably going to be pretty short, sadly, because otherwise YouTube bust our balls. So
Steve was about to explode editing episode
Bro.
1, and I don't want to put him through that every week. So
I can't do that every week. I spent so much. It reached a point of obsession. Like I even messaged you at one point. I'm like, I have to take a break from this because this is crushing my soul.
I know, and I felt terrible because I'm like, I can't do anything, or I would.
At least we finally figured it out, and hopefully we don't have that problem again. Watch I say that, and but we'll see.
This episode airs mid-July.
Yeah,
We finally
we
got
finally got it. Thanks, YouTube. But one retraction we do have to make from the last episode is the comment that we had made about how that episode is the only time that there's a shot over Jerry's shoulder during the stand-up portions where it's looking out into the audience, because it happened again in this episode, and it's going to happen again in another episode that I pointed out to Adam recently. So a statement that I made a minute ago was like that shot like that in the pilot is definitely different than the others. But I have to stand corrected of saying they definitely showed that sort of shot more than once. But the first one was definitely different.
Yeah, I don't think it was nearly as is dramatic the right word. Like it wasn't nearly as the lights and everything all kind of like.
Well,
it
they
was
showed
in
like the
first
waitresses
episode.
and stuff too.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So it really had a lot more of that nightclubby
Nightclub vibe, yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, I guess we were wrong on that one, but the big joke of
We're gonna be wrong a lot.
yeah, please be ready to forgive us, or you can hate on us too, but we can take that. Just drop it in the comment section. It all
Right.
counts as engagement. We win either way.
Either way.
And you win too, because you get to feel better by belittling us for the areas where we make mistakes. So we're all going to walk away happy.
We all win.
The idea of the joke about women paying by check,
Yeah,
just like
so
the
I have
blazer,
notes about that,
a product
yeah.
of its time.
Yeah, so I have my notes literally say outdated tech, writing checks, and the housewife trope of women who are experts at spending money.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like, wow, like that joke would not be told today. You know,
It
what
definitely
I
wouldn't be
mean?
received
And
the same way.
would not be received the same. And checks, I even have down here that I've probably, even back when they were a thing, I think I only wrote like maybe 10 checks my whole life.
Man,
Like, you know,
checks are the
total.
worst. I don't miss checks at all. And it's funny because Jerry, not his whole joke, but a big portion of the joke was like men writing checks, and like how they're like, you know, it doesn't make sense to us, and it's like, I gave my money to these people, and if you contact them, they'll stick up for me. You
I
know?
wrote on this. Does this
The
have any
amount-
value at all?
Exactly. It's like it's shocking that checks were ever a thing because
Yeah.
it's so ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, and which obviously leads to why checks were eventually a thing of the past, is because like, what in the world? You know, how is this not something that didn't cause all kinds of problems? And it did, and that's why we don't use checks anymore. But
Right.
I will say this: like when I was in high school, I worked in a grocery store, and people paying by check. Oh, God, I hated that. I hated it so much. And it's always kind of the same thing. And I don't know if you've ever really had a job where you had to deal with this, but like you check out.
I've been a cashier before when I was a teenager. Yeah. I remember.
Where were you doing that at?
Kroger.
Oh, okay, so another grocery store. There you go. Yeah. Well, people, when they pay by check, it's like they tilt their head to start looking at the checkbook. And I think when they do that, like half of the brain cells just go tipping out of this ear because like everything goes wrong from that point forward. The thing that always got me was like, you know where you're shopping, right? You know what your name is, right? You know what the date is. Just fill all that crap out ahead of time. And then whenever I tell you how much the total is, just write that in and then you're done. That's all you can, but no, nobody ever thought like that. So like the writing of the checks was the most miserable. Or then there was the people like, oh, hey, will you print my check? And I don't know if you guys had this at Kroger, but like you could sign your check. And then if they wanted you to print the check, you take their check and you shove it into the machine and then it prints all the crap out about like how much they're paying and blah, blah, blah. And I just always want to be like, you lazy bastard. Just write that in there because this through the machine, there are so many things that can go wrong with that. And you're not going to be happy and I'm not going to be happy. And I guarantee you my manager's not going to be happy. Paying by checks is just the worst. But,
it's just, I always like compare it to the people at gas stations that are buying 13 different lottery games. And some of which are paying by cash, and then the other ones they have scratched off previous tickets and they're doing the exchange, and it's just meanwhile you are coming apart mentally behind them while keeping it together in a public scenario. It's like that, only it's because again I feel like I'm harking back to the old woman trope of the now how much did you say it was? You know, as they're filming and you're just all right, I'm ready.
Yeah. No,
having the check pre-filled in, that's a big brain move right there.
Seriously, but it's like those are the things that you know what store you're at, you know what the date is, you know how to sign your name. You know, there's like you can fill all that crap out and then just put the dollar amount in at the very end.
I like how you say that so condescendingly. You know what your name is, you can write it.
These are the things when you spend a lot of time working at a job where you have to deal with the public and you get crapped on constantly.
I did appreciate.
I know there are some of you out there that know what I'm talking about.
Oh, for sure.
No, the holster joke. Yeah, you're right, man. Yeah.
I arguably still work one of those jobs. Yes, the the check in the holster thing. I thought was a funny joke. I laughed.
While I disagree with Jerry about women being these check writing experts, I will say far more women were great at writing checks than there were men. Yeah. He talks like every woman is just this check writing machine. Not so, sir. Not so.
And also, but I think that kind of harkens back to the old way of life where the wife stayed at home with the kids and the husband went out and had the job, and so she went to the grocery store and she was in charge of buying all of the things, so they just had more of a need for the checkbook. Clearly that's no longer the case today. But I feel like that's kind of where that thing came from is, well, yep, I have the checkbook, I have the cards, I'm the one that needs them, like that kind of thing. So
the checks.
But even when we had checks, I never wrote any because I hated it.
What's with the chicks and the checks? Okay, that actually is a joke. And this bit actually is very much expanded upon in Seinfeld's album called I'm Telling You for the Last Time. I'm sure you can probably stream it anywhere albums are streamed, or you can buy the CD. I still own the CD of this. I actually have the DVD as well, but I prefer his delivery on the CD versus the DVD, which I don't know why they didn't use the same shows or whatever. But anyhow, I'm Telling You for the Last Time, Jerry Seinfeld, very, very good. But he expands upon this whole check thing on that album, so definitely worth checking out. And then lastly, of course, the joke about keys getting lost in the purse, which is 100% true. Because, the way our driveway is, I get home first and then my wife gets home second and she parks behind me. So I drive the kids to school in the morning while she's getting ready for work. So I take her keys and then I spend a few minutes rooting around looking for them every time. It's like, you never you can just find them. And then I drive the kids to school, and then I come back, and then I go and put the keys back in the purse. So I know that like it's nothing with like her. She's just like carelessly throwing them in. When you put the keys in the purse, it's like there are little gremlins in the purse that like hide those keys. I don't know.
It's like the same concept as the dryer and socks, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I know I put them in there. Where are they at now? Yeah, I think he makes even the joke like one's like breaking out like they're up against the sidewall.
Yeah, really. Oh, that was when he said that in the pilot, right?
Is that where I don't know which episode it was from, but it's like I'm getting out. You got tomorrow. The dryer.
I'm pretty sure that was in the pilot. Someone correct us in the comments. No,
we can't remember 2 weeks ago.
Right. But this is the genius of Seinfeld's comedy: is that keys getting lost in the purse deal. Very, very relatable, and he had a really great way to joke
to make it relatable.
In the next scene, browsing in the video store.
Another time of an ancient past.
Yes. I read a tweet recently from, I forget who it is, but they basically kind of poo-pooed on the whole idea of, a lot of people these days, it seems like, are nostalgic for the video store experience. There was even a Blockbuster sitcom that was released recently, put out on Netflix, and it's like, people are like, oh man, Blockbuster, and it's like, I know several people who worked at Blockbuster in the past. It's like, oh yeah, this is so great, I can reminisce, blah blah blah. Well, anyways, this guy on Twitter is basically crapping on anyone who is nostalgic for that, because in his opinion, it's just romanticizing the past, because going to the video store was not that great. Showing up and looking through an endless walls of tapes or discs or whatever was not that great. The game or the movie you were wanting being already checked out, not that great, whatever. Agree or disagree? What do you think about that?
Oh man, I kind of agree with both. My experience I know I've said this before in our conversations. And late fees. Yeah. I always was always so stoked to go to the video store. I was so excited to get a game. I was going to play it all weekend. It was going to be awesome. I'm going to play X-Men or Mega Man or the new Mario game. And then you get there because, your parents took you late on a Friday night, and you get there and the only one that is left is Where's Waldo for NES, or whatever. And you're taking that home and you're like, man, would have been so much cooler, so I kind of get the point where the guy's like, I just remember that specifically because it actually happened.
Did that happen to you? Wow, that's a horrible game to wind up with.
Yeah, and when that particular one, my dad brought it home for me. So I'm assuming that of all of the games that were left, that was the one that he thought I would enjoy the most.
You don't even know me, Dad.
I was going to say, which at any point just tells you how out of touch of my interest my dad was. That's a different podcast.
Yeah, different podcast.
But that being said, though, I worked at a video store as well. I worked at a Hollywood Video, and that was a kick-ass job, let me tell you. I absolutely loved every minute of it. I liked going to work. It was fun to be in one. So I get that. And then, because it was cool, we got to play any movies that we wanted, that as long as they weren't rated R, obviously, because of the family nature of the store. Sure. But we could put in any of our favorite movies and have those playing all the time. And then, what was your biggest physical effort of the day? Vacuuming the store at the end and oh god, I gotta put these movies in alphabetical order. I don't know how we do it. No, please. That was your job, and so it was pretty cool, actually. I really enjoyed it, and I loved the meme of when Netflix canceled that Blockbuster show. That I was like, this is the second time Netflix has put employees of Blockbuster out of business or something.
I didn't realize they canceled that show. That sucks.
Oh man, I haven't
watched it, but I hardly get to watch anything.
At that meme. It was really funny.
Well, that's too bad. I grew up in a very small town in Arkansas, and rural, you name it. There was really, I think
You should put a bleep there anyway, just to make it sound mysterious.
right.
Back in
People
rural.
can't know where he's from. For the longest time, there was only one video store, and then as time went along, we got a couple more. But the selection was usually crap, and it certainly didn't have any sort of atmosphere like a Hollywood Video or a Blockbuster or something like that. Because once I went to college, I moved to the city that I live in now, and there was Blockbuster, there was Hollywood Video. I mean, you name it, all of those places, because it's a much larger city than the one that I grew up in. And it's like, I don't think I would have had the same experience if I'd have worked at any of those stores, but I know a lot of people that worked at, Blockbuster, Hollywood Video, Family Video, stuff like that. And kind of like you had said, pretty much all of them loved it. I mean, like every job you'll ever have, there's some bull crap to be had with.
Oh, for sure.
But on the whole, it was a fun experience. Yeah, that's a callback. But yeah, in general, it was like working at a video store was a pretty cool job.
Yeah.
Wish I could have done it. I love movies. I love talking about movies. But I never got to do that. A guy I know that was, I know this is the last thing I'll say on this, but he was worked at Blockbuster almost the whole time I knew him in college. He and I would just nerd out with movie talk. And just annoy the heck out of everyone else around us because we just love movies. We love talking about
Yeah.
Them.
That's what we did before the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. And we didn't get all up in each other's grills about it like how Twitter likes to do or Facebook. Yeah. In one of these Facebook groups, it wasn't any of the blessed groups that I mentioned before.
The blessed.
Bring their names up on the screen right here. But there was one person who made a statement about Seinfeld in one of these other Seinfeld groups, as not endorsed by Beer Clock, and welcome to the Boca Vista. But one guy makes a statement, and this other dude's like, "Oh, you really think?" And just going off on this guy. I'm like, "Bro, dude, calm down a little bit. We're just talking Seinfeld here, man." He's losing his shit over whatever this thing.
He's getting upset.
George is getting upset. But I love the scene of them browsing the video store because it's like, man, you look at that and it's just like, that's what it was. But
yeah, so when... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead because I'll remember mine. Mine's in the notes.
So in that kind of same vein of the movie store, when Jerry holds up the adult movie, where he's like, what do you think of this? I love how it wasn't in some kind of beaded off section. You know what I mean? Of all of those stores, it was like the sacred curtain, and you couldn't go when you were a kid. You were like, "Oh my God, what's behind the curtain?"
Okay, so the video store you worked in, you worked in a video store. So did they have adult movies, and did they have an adult movie section? And was it beaded off or behind a door or something like that?
I don't think that we had adult movies, not to my memory. I feel like I would remember putting those movies back at some point. But yeah, I don't think it existed, but there was a Waterbeds and stuff. I don't know if that's a company name that anybody will remember, but there was a brand of stores called Waterbeds and stuff. And this was the place in the 90s where if you were trying to buy a hashish pipe, you couldn't call it a bowl, or if you said the word bong, they would kick you out of the store.
It's a water pipe.
Yeah, and they had all of those along with all the porn tapes, in the beaded, curtains that just reeked of incense and bad decisions and stuff, And when you were 18, you were like, I'm gonna go check out behind the bead curtain today. It was an event. But in this particular movie store, it was you could just walk right up to the shelf and be like, oh, here.
Yeah, that's what cracks me up about this one is it's right out in the middle of everything. It's funny. I had notes about this here, so I'm glad we're talking about it. But it was the thing that got me is there's one shot where I think the camera's looking at Elaine, and you can see behind her the blurry image of a Woody Woodpecker tape. And it's and Jerry's literally holding pornography in his hand. It's you have both of those out on the same shot. It's just ridiculous. So it makes me wonder. Obviously, you get, like I just said, I grew up in the country, folks.
Big same.
Was that a thing in New York? Was porn just right out there on the shelves with everything else?
I don't know. I feel like I also caught a blurred like Dragon Ball Z VHS tape
Oh, really?
at one point in the background too. So while we were thinking about that, so it's like a one-stop shop,
Yeah.
you know?
You get your porn, you get your cartoons, you get your bong, and then you get the hell out of there.
I'm gonna get a spirit bomb for real.
Yeah, kind of crazy. Well, number one, it just being right out there in the middle of everything. Because like I remember, okay, you said this a second ago, and it like totally perked me up because the name of the first, and I said for the longest time there was only one rental store in the town I grew up in. It was called the Movie Store, which is like most generic name ever. Well, they had an adult section back in the back. There was no beads or anything, but it was just a separate room. The door was wide open, so you could just easily walk back there or anything. I just remember going to look for movies and my parents saying, "Don't go back there."
Don't you go back there, Steve.
Well, as time went on, they eventually stopped doing adult movies. So that room just became part of the store. Well, I couldn't. It's so funny because like I'm in my teens and I'm going to look for a movie, and maybe the movie I was wanting was back in that room. And it's like, I felt like I couldn't go back there because it's like, this is the bad room.
It is forbidden no more.
It had been ingrained in my mind and my psyche for so long. I'm just like, I can't go back to this room and get this movie. It was just this huge thing. But yeah, the adult sections, wild stuff. But apparently not in New York because it's right out there on the shelves.
I might be like exposing my usual amount of ignorance here. But when Jerry makes the joke with Maureen Stapleton.
Maybe they came back for Chinese food. Maureen Stapleton, she gets a craving. She's probably screaming at those aliens, "I gotta have a lo mein."
I don't get it. Like, I saw Cocoon a 1,000 years ago, right? But I Googled Maureen Stapleton. I was like, maybe this will lead me to the path, of the joke. No idea. I don't get it.
Yeah, I think I maybe caught a bit of Cocoon back in the day, but I definitely never just like watched it to completion or anything like that. But like, that joke also made no sense to me. I love though. I gotta have a lo mein. Something about the way he says that might be my. It's in the running. At least for one of my favorite lines of the episode. And it makes no sense. I gotta have a lo mein.
It's so funny you say that because my most hated line in this episode is in this scene.
Oh.
And of the episode, not of the series, but it's when Elaine says, "Have you lost it, man?
Have you lost it, man?" Yeah.
The way that she says that just really irritates me because it just doesn't make any sense in any kind of context of anything else. It's almost just like she just turns into a different person for a second and then just morphs back into Elaine. And Jerry doesn't even acknowledge it either. It's just like, oh, that's just something. That's just how she says this, or whatever. And maybe that's just me nitpicking, but just like
no, it bothered me
watching
too.
the episode a few times, every time she said it, I was just like, God, I hate that.
And I'm going to a little caveat here. And Adam and I have been talking about this just in our private conversations and stuff. But like in watching this show critically, I've started noticing things that I had noticed them before, but I reckon with them in a different way now. Because I'm watching the show with more of a critical eye so we can go in and discuss it in depth and all that. And one of the things that I've started catching myself doing is like, I'm finding more and more things that bother me. It doesn't make me dislike the show or anything, but I'm like, why the hell did they do that? That's so stupid. And we're going to come across some of these things later on in this very episode. But yeah, the "have you lost it, man?" I did not put that in my notes or anything, but yeah, I totally feel you on that. And I don't get why they had to make her deliver the line that way.
So weirdly.
I think it probably comes back to, and they joke about this later in the show when they start making the Seinfeld show within the show, they don't know how to write for a woman. I kind of feel like they didn't know what to do with Elaine really at that point. Because there are...
Well, I have that they... Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to keep...
No. Go ahead. Interrupt me all you want.
So I kind of put down that they they really drive home the fact that Jerry and Elaine were in a relationship right off the beginning, like in the very first scene. I think just to establish that they're friends now, and that they are both similar people in how they view like the world and like situations that happen to them. Like neither one of them want to go to these social functions. Neither one of them want to do it alone. They want to have the other one. Like there's plenty of other people there to mock, you know, and stuff like that. It's like they have the same passion for kind of ribbing on people, you know, so it's kind of like they're establishing that this is like they dated but they're not a love interest anymore. And so to have that just be right in the forefront of the opening conversation, and then I just also have that, you know, I can kind of relate to having that level of social anxiety, like going to a wedding, especially by myself. Like if I had to go, I would not enjoy myself probably. But you know, like I don't really like going out on social things like that. And so I would be the person that would be like, all right, man, I'll do this for you, but you got to come with me to this wedding. Don't make me do this alone, you know, kind of thing. Like I related to that pretty well, except for when she said, have you lost it, man, like a crazy person.
She really
lost me there. But
I'll tell you the part that really got me though about that exact same exchange was when Jerry said there'll be plenty of people to mock.
Yeah.
No joke. When I was in middle school, high school, something like that, I can't remember now. But anyways, we would go to the high school basketball games. I did not play basketball, so I was only there to watch, to hang out, to talk to people, to try to meet girls, any number of things. Me and my best friend would just sit there and look, essentially kind of like people watching, and just mock everyone in the place. And we had so much fun doing that. Like I would be like juiced for when Friday night came and it was a basketball game. I played football, so I didn't get to do that during the football games, but basketball games, we're sitting out there and we're just mocking all these stupid rednecks that we grew up with in rural Arkansas. It was so great. Because in that moment when he said that, I'm like, oh, there are people that feel like that.
There are people like that.
Yeah.
The last thing that I have for the video store is the very obscure part of the two old ladies at the end.
When you're dead, you're dead. That's it. You're not going anywhere.
Where they just say, when you're dead, you're not going anywhere.
That's a Cocoon reference,
hell?
right?
Oh, is it?
I think it's a Cocoon reference, but I literally
said I've seen it, and you have it, and then you know the reference.
Well, but isn't it about old people basically being taken up by these aliens and something? I don't know. Yeah. I'm assuming it's a Cocoon reference, but no, it's funny you mentioned that. I don't have that in my notes, but I thought the exact same thing, and I'll tell you the reason why I didn't write it down is because at the last minute I'm like, oh, I bet that's a Cocoon reference or something.
See, I didn't get that.
But,
see, I'm not.
It's like, why did they include that line? It's not even
I know,
funny.
Like of all of the things to say, like
you got to find a way to button up the scene. You don't do it with that. But yeah, that was like
Katie.
When you're dead, I forget what she says, but I remember thinking like,
when you're dead, you're not going anywhere.
Yeah, there are going to be some other lines that fit this same bill that I want us to talk about here in a bit. But my last thing to point out about the video store scene is another rival for probably my favorite line of the episode. He's a public fornicator.
Dr. Stevens.
He's a good boy.
Yes, he's a fine boy.
Public fornicator. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I lied. One more thing. Elaine asking Jerry, did your father get the hair weave? And he's like, he's still doing the sweep across.
The sweep across.
Is the first thing, and I'm literally asking out of ignorance, is a weave the same thing as a wig? Or I've never heard of men getting weaves.
Yeah, I haven't really either, actually.
Or a hair piece or whatever the hell. But
I've heard of hair piece, but I've pretty much, I've 100% heard the term weave to only describe hair for women.
Right.
and not wig and hairpiece or whatever for dudes. Yeah,
I'm asking
because you don't really
because
see
you're
that
my
women, you don't hear
closest-
women wearing wigs all that often. It's weaves, right?
Yeah, I never got the whole. Did your father get the weave? Because I was like, men get weaves. You're my connection to bald culture. So I expected you to be able to explain this to me.
I'll bring it up at the next chapter
at the
meeting.
next meeting. And then Jerry saying that his dad's doing the sweep across. I've only ever heard the sweep across referred to as a comb over. The sweep across.
I've got a question from one of the Harrys out in the community. They want to know if we wear weaves.
Do
Anybody want to chime in on that?
Dunk, 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 dunk. This meeting will come to order. This meeting of the balds.
The meeting of the balds. It makes it sound so, I don't know, intimidating, I guess.
There's this guy that I stream that I just bust his balls a lot. And one time I referred to him as a bald. And like that really caught on. And so now like he's kind of like that, like my connection to the bald community.
We're like a race of people.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You're a baldist. You're an anti-baldite.
You're an anti-baldite.
Oh my gosh. But no, the whole thing about the sweep across or the comb over, like I grew up we talked about this on a very old episode of the Beer O'Clock podcast, but remember the church camp that I told you I went to back in Texas? It was so awful. I had a great time there, but everything about this place was just uncomfortable and disgusting.
Was this the place with the disgusting water?
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay,
absolutely.
yeah, I do remember.
There was this pastor from this church. They had a big room that was like lined all the way down with showers, and all the people would go and shower and stuff like that. Well, and then to get back to like the dormitory area where all the bunks were and stuff, it was like a long walk. It was all inside, but it was a long walk. Well, this guy, he would shower and stuff, and then he comes back, and he had his comb over was so long that like it would be hanging down like to his shoulders. And then,
oh my god,
because he didn't just comb it over, it's like he would comb it over and then swirl it around, and like it was
he
a
never
sight
gave
to
up
behold.
the dream. Wow.
He never gave up the dream. Yeah, but no, his hair was so, and
Wow.
that was, I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, whoa.
What the hell is that?
It blew my mind. This is like, I had only ever seen him with the comb over, and then just to see it all hanging down there, and it's like all limp and slightly wavy because it's still wet and stuff. And he always walked back wearing like one of those wife beater shirts and stuff, and like lumbering back to his bunk. And I'm like, whoa, look at this guy.
That is not a movie star hairline.
No, not a movie star. So anyways, yeah, the comb over. So the next scene, they're at the party. In my notes.
By the way, we balds do not condone the sweep across. By the way, that's not a bald approved.
I think that's an anti-bald move. I think that's an anti-bald.
You're ashamed of being bald.
Ashamed?
If you do the sweep
Exactly.
across.
Yeah. No, you need to embrace your culture.
It's self-deprecating,
Yeah.
and we will not tolerate.
He's a self-hating bald. So.
Self-loathing balds are the worst.
Shame on you, sir. What's funny is the guy's actually a super nice guy, but yeah, the hair, the hair. Wow. But no, in the notes about the party here, my first note is, who the hell are these people? My second note, this is a bar, with several question marks after it.
Yeah, I got that same vibe too, because she does say it's at some kind of local bar, and looks like some kind of formal dining restaurant or something.
They got
Like,
the piano
the long
guy,
table, the
Persian rugs hanging up on the walls. Everyone's dressed up really nicely. Elaine's got like this updo going on that looks great, I might add. And they're all like you said, seated at like this banquet hall table. I'm just like, this is like,
Bud Lights are not $3 a pitcher at this place. I don't care what.
This
they
is
say.
like no bar I've ever seen in my life. That's
for sure. I've been going to the wrong ones if that's the case, because that's a really nice bar.
Very nice bar. Yeah, I just remember being shocked that I'm like, this is not what I was expecting when she says, oh, it's going to be at this bar. it almost leaves me dumbfounded. Like, I almost don't even know what to say about it because that area is just, and again, I'm just like, is this like a New York thing? It's an upscale bar. I don't even know that they would call that a bar.
Yeah.
I don't know. It doesn't have bar vibes at all. But
I love how Jerry says in the very, like, as he's introducing himself, I didn't bring anything.
I didn't bring anything.
That's like something I would totally say just out of social awkwardness because, like, I don't know, like I would say something like that, like, I'm sorry, I didn't bring anything, you know, like
just get it out there nice and early.
Yeah, nice and early so I can stop feeling bad about it, you know, and wondering how to tell you. And
it's funny because that is totally something I would do because in my very sick mind, it's like, if I get this out really early, no one can hold it over my head because I've already disarmed the situation by telling them I am a disappointment in this area. I admit that.
I'm terrible. I'm sorry.
Like, yeah, I know I suck. I'm a horrible guest.
I wrote on these.
This is the amount of money I wish I had. So they're sitting at that table and all these people are just, you know, kind of loudly conversing with one another. Jerry immediately takes notice of Vanessa. Isn't that her name, Vanessa?
Yeah, I think so.
And she's an attractive woman.
Just as a side note, I had trouble remembering her name as I'm watching the episode, mind you, and I literally have her marked down as just the girl in some of these, just because I couldn't remember her name and I didn't want to stop. But yeah, I guess that's just how forgettable her name is.
We should have taken up Jerry's technique of 7 minute Roberts, which is a point that I have here. I don't know if you've noticed this or have come across this online at all. Sagman, Bennett, Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taft is one of the most confused lines in probably the entire show, because if you Google it or if you see it discussed in Seinfeld groups, people will F these names up 100 ways from Tuesday. It's Simon.
No, I didn't know that.
Bennett Robbins, Oppenheimer, Tap, Simon, Bennett Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taff with no T, which is I think what Netflix says if you have the closed captioning on. I'm not going to go through a list, but no joke. If there's any Seinfeld fans out there that have looked online and have seen anything about this episode, I guarantee you have seen misspellings of these names, which is so weird because it's such.
It is kind of believable though, because it is like he says it so fast many times.
And what's hilarious is from the primary sources, it's Sagman, Bennett, Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taft, like William Howard Taft.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you watch the Netflix, it's Sagman, Bennett, Robbins, Oppenheim, and Taft with 2 F's instead of Taft, like William Howard Taft. I watched that scene over and over again. I even watched it in slow-mo.
Wow.
Just to see, I'm like, does she actually put the T on the end or not? And it's not until you watch it over a few different scenes, it's like, it is Taft. As in President Taft. But yeah, if you look anywhere, you'll see that these names get messed up 100 different ways. Which, side note, one of my during this process of trying to make sure that I was getting these names correctly, because no matter where you look, you're going to see them done differently. Watching Seinfeld on Netflix at 50% speed is one of my favorite things in the world right now. Everyone sounds crazy stoned. And the lines, the way that they're delivered at half speed is hilarious.
I'm going to have to try that.
You got to do it. Anybody out there, I'm just going to say you're welcome for me having shared this with you. Watch Seinfeld at half speed because good Lord, is it funny.
Of course, they handled my tattoo removal lawsuit.
Oh, that was you.
Imagine. Spelling mom with 2 O's.
Very funny.
Yeah, it's what the thing I think is hilarious about that is the thing that Jerry does where he repeats the names over and over in his head to kind of like nail them in there. I've done that stuff all my life. I kind of had a reputation around the office at my old job, where like people could tell me a number, and I could tell them that number like hours later, because I would still have it up here because I had like found a way to, I was thinking Kramer with like when he's like setting his mental alarm clock, you know. But like I would get that number in there, and I could bring that number back hours later and stuff. But it's the exact same thing. I'm so good at it now that I don't have to be like
almost like that's your superpower.
That's my superpower.
Like,
that's the only thing that I have to offer this world that's of any kind of value.
So I have that when Elaine is when she starts, and I'm pretty excited to talk about this dream conversation. So when she starts into it, do you think that it's and from its inception of the conversation, do you think that she's trying to cock block Jerry from the beginning of it? Ooh. Or do you think that she realizes that he's trying to get out of the conversation halfway through it to talk to the other girl, and then she's like, then she keeps talking to him about it to cock block him,
and then asking him like, "Are you paying attention to me?
Are you paying attention to me?" Like, or do you think that she was just an honest, like, "Oh, hey, I had this dream about you the other night," like honestly thinking he was gonna appreciate the story?
Man, that's a good thought. I don't think that I ever thought about that, to be honest with you.
Because it could go either way.
It really honestly could. My first impression, or I guess my natural inclination is probably a better way to say it, is just simply that she brought it up to him, not necessarily to stop the conversation.
Take his attention away from, Vanessa or whatever.
But definitely could pick up on the fact that he really wanted to get back to the conversation, and then that's the thing that really pissed her off, and they ended up having to talk about that in the taxi cab. But like you'd said, it really could go either way. I think it's more of one of those questions of what was her inward motivation that we're really never going to see in the story. I don't know if it even shows enough of her facial expressions prior to that to show whether
pick up on it.
Whether she really got what was going on between Jerry and Vanessa. And but that's definitely a valid question, though, because it really could have been either.
So you know how Elaine says that Jerry has wooden teeth? Right? So I got to thinking, like, well, what does wooden teeth mean to dream interpreters?
Ooh.
Right? So I Googled, what does wooden teeth mean in a dream? Right? And so I found the first answer. And then I was like, okay, well, I could see that's kind of an interesting point. And so then I went down to the second one, and it was a different answer. And then I went down to the third one, and it was a different answer. I mean, because obviously they're going to be different, because what the they're dreams, right? So I thought it was worth noting the top three answers, right? Okay. So the first one was relaxation and appreciation is what the first one was talking about. And like it's supposed to mean that you're going through a period of relaxation in your life and like self-appreciation or something like that. If you have a dream about having wooden teeth, I don't know if it went as far as you're in a dream and somebody else has one, or whatever. The second one was you have issues of death and dying.
Ooh,
which I thought was interesting, because they talk about the video store. When you're dead, you're dead. You're not going anywhere.
The most throwaway-ish line of all throwaway lines.
And then the third one was you feel that you have to defend your self-image from verbal attacks and emotional abuse.
Oh.
Which is funny, because I feel like the point of this episode is to kind of illustrate that, at least for the most part, Elaine has some kind of feelings for Jerry still, and like doesn't want to see him talk to another girl or try to get invested in another relationship or whatever. So Jerry having the wooden teeth and defending himself from, verbal attacks or emotional abuse might be coming from the fact that Elaine is unable to let the whole idea of them go, and is deflecting her kind of jealousy and or negativity towards Jerry in the rest of the episode up until the very end, like even when they're in the cab and things like that. when she's just clearly pissed at about him, and is actually pissed at him for quite some time, because he even makes the comment later in the episode like, oh yeah, she's still mad, like doesn't give a shit, but she obviously cares, or whatever. So that was just my overactive brain thinking about it in terms of all the things for Jerry to have in this dream. Why would they pick wooden teeth of all things? I wonder if this has some kind of meaning or something like behind it. So that's why I googled it in the first place and thought it was pretty interesting.
Holy shit, dude, you blew my freaking mind there. I am legitimately in awe at this moment. I'm like, wow, man, I never would. Wow, that is crazy. The first thing that popped into my head as you were talking about this is I'm like, when you dream, you generally dream about stuff that is in some way related to you in your life. I'm like, would I ever even dream about freaking wooden teeth? I don't even know what they look like.
Right.
Do they look like the wood paneling that you can see on the overlay here? Or
right. I mean, the only thing that I compare wooden teeth to is like George Washington. I knew he had wooden teeth,
and I don't even know what they look like, but I know that he had them, or supposedly at least. I don't know. I think I may have heard that was bullcrap, but the second thing was that the dream that I have is the one where my teeth are falling out.
Right. I have had that dream many times, actually.
Yeah. I've had that a lot of times, and I forget what kind of insecurity that speaks to, but I'm sure someone will leave us a comment explaining that. But no, man. Yeah, the wooden teeth, bro. I never would have thought that would have had so much context. That is crazy.
I mean, again, I could just be overanalyzing it to death and making stuff up, in my own brain, but I just figured that was just such a weird, very distinct thing to have Jerry have in that particular sequence. So just wondered if there was any meaning there.
I'm not making any money from this or anything, but seriously, if you watch the Seinfeld DVDs and the special, features and stuff, and where they interview the writers and stuff from the show, I would not put it past these people to have thought about all that crap when talking about the whole wooden teeth dream thing. So that's maybe that's part of why I find that so fascinating, because I could totally see them taking that into account when writing that. But that kind of leads me to the question, though, of of course, Elaine goes on that whole thing. She kind of questions whether Jerry's paying attention or not. And then they get into the cab, and she kind of flips out on him. My question is, was Jerry's behavior really that bad? What do you think?
I feel like he doesn't do a very good job of disguising the fact that he would rather be talking about anything else than to her at that moment about whatever the hell she's talking about. I mean, and especially I think just coming from, I have this kind of down. I don't know if this is, if it's in this part or not, but I do have the ability for a formerly dating couple to remain friends, especially in the level that Jerry and Elaine are throughout the show, only exists in a sitcom, right? It doesn't happen in real life. I mean, and I'm sure there are exceptions to every rule, but for the most part, the dynamic between Elaine and Jerry are completely not realistic at all. So coming back from, if a relationship were to try to be friends, this is the type of conversation that I think would be the inevitable happening of why it can't happen. Because, Jerry's trying to go out there and talk to a chick that he finds attractive, and Elaine's wanting Jerry to be the friend, and hey, check out this the story that I had about this dream I had, and I don't care about your stupid story, I'm checking out this chick over here. That's a more believable kind of back and forth than it is with them just being the happy-go-lucky friends that they are throughout the whole episode. This is what really would have happened, and that's why Elaine and Jerry wouldn't have been friends after they broke up, and so him being I don't know, that's crazy, would you imagine that? It's just so weird.
Yeah, well, I forget what his response was, how about that, or something.
Yeah,
that's a non-response.
Nothing says I don't want to talk to you than when someone says how about that, as your response. It's the same meme when you're on the 8th that's crazy and the person won't stop with their story.
Yeah.
It's like that, it's I don't care. And so yeah, I could see getting mad if I was honestly trying to tell my friend about something and they're just like, I don't care if you exist, back at me. And then it's like,
I was talking with someone about this just the other day, where it's kind of funny that you mentioned that, but where like if you're in like a group of people or something and you're talking about something, or someone's talking about something, and someone in the group gives them a bro, you need to shut up right then. It's like, as soon as you get that bro, it's like, uh-oh, I may have just stepped on a landmine here. And we need to just kind of button up this conversation.
And scene.
Yeah. Good night, that's it for me. Good night, everybody.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I knew going into writing this note that this is going to be a lame story, but I'm going to share it simply for the hopes that someone may watch this show and leave a comment about it. But I remember reading an article one time that basically explained in a weird level of detail why you shouldn't discuss your dreams with other people, because it's essentially one of the most boring conversations you could put that other person through.
Well, they have no context into what you're saying.
I didn't have wooden teeth. You did. It's like, do you hear yourself right now? She's just getting all pissed off at him for not listening to her wooden teeth story when he's doing her a solid by showing up at this event and happens to meet somebody that he thinks is cool. Now, like you mentioned earlier, though, I think there were still some feelings there that he was kind of treading on by showing some interest in this other woman and stuff like that. But it's like, if I was George and I made my way into that scene, I would have given Elaine a bro, because it's just like, you need to calm the hell down right now.
You were you, but you weren't you.
Yeah.
And that's messed up, because I have definitely described a dream that I had to someone, and I probably have used verbatim that same phrasing, like, you were you, but like you weren't you.
Yeah.
And how are you supposed to take that as the person listening to the story? Like, okay, like, this is great. I'm on the edge of my seat. Keep going, Adam, with your stupid dream.
Well, Elaine very upset with Jerry for not paying attention. Jerry was kind of paying attention. I think Jerry was doing an okay job. The original question of, was Jerry's behavior really that bad? I would think if we put him on the scales again, I'm a guy, because I did this in the last episode. If we put him on the scales, I think the scales would tip toward his behavior wasn't really that bad, but maybe not like 100% like this, because I can see why Elaine was hurt by it.
For sure. Did she overreact? Probably.
Yes, I think she. Well, I think maybe I'll join you on the probably. That probably she overreacted, but yeah. It really kind of a wild interaction that I think gives you a little bit of perspective into their relationship, which I think is we're going to touch on here as we get to the end, because I've got I had an interesting thought about this, but maybe it's interesting, maybe it's
Yeah, so the last thing I have about that is just that it's rare to see. Again, I don't want to say this is the only time, because I know I'm going to get proven wrong the moment I say it. But I'm going to say that it's rare to see Elaine jealous.
Yeah.
Of Jerry's relationships in this show, moving on from this particular moment.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't see that. She doesn't even really seem to give, I think, after. If anything, she just makes fun of the people that he dates or whatever.
Right. That relationship dynamic evolves so much as you go on throughout the show, and keep watching till the end, because we're going to talk about that here. Another stand-up segment. I need to go back, and I made a note here. I need to go back in time how long these segments are, because I would like to compare them to those in the first episodes. But again, very short stand-up segment. Makes the joke about the platonic relationship. That got me to thinking of like, oh my gosh, like all these people that I know that always have like really effed up relationships, and like naming relationship styles after them. Like the person who's always, getting upset because like you didn't text when you got home safe or whatever, naming that relationship.
It's a really Lorenic relationship.
Yeah. It just kind of,
no offense to anyone named Lauren out there. I just picked it as a name.
Right. But I don't really have a lot to say about this section.
I don't need it. Actually, this is actually where I have the friendship only like this only works on sitcoms.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I have for stand up here.
So they're back at the apartment. Jerry walks in and his parents are in his bed, right in
Willy
the living
Wonka
room.
vibes, man. Willy Wonka vibes, hardcore.
And they talk about this again, not getting any commission from the people who made the Seinfeld DVDs. I think it's Sony, but in the notes on this episode, it points out the fact that Jerry didn't get a bedroom in his apartment until later in the season. I think it's later in this season, or maybe it was next season. I forget. But anyways, he essentially had a studio apartment in the beginning. So the implication for the pilot was like, had Jerry just been sleeping on the couch this entire time? Because in the pilot, there was no bed, but there was no bedroom either.
Right.
But anyways, he comes home and yeah, like you said, big Wonka vibes. Parents sleeping there, or laying there rather, they're awake, laying there on the bed in the living room. And Jerry's dad is not Jerry's dad.
No. And he's even got like the complete with like the striped pajamas, you know, and the comb over grandpa look from Willy Wonka. Like, it was just like, how do you not get that impression the moment that you see it? But yeah, it is not Jerry's dad. It is a different guy. Well, only for this episode, I believe. And he's not a raincoat salesman in this. In this episode, he is, I guess, he's a lawyer, or he worked in a law office or something, because Jerry asked him all about, you know, like law offices and stuff, and completely different profession than
interesting. Yeah.
The Morty of the future.
I wonder if that means that he was in law in some way. Or yeah, but no, that's interesting because yeah, he this guy is the most un-Morty of Morty Seinfelds. Like it's crazy because they did such a 180 with this character. Like in this one, he's like the sensible father figure. Not funny at all. Not trying to be funny. Just trying to be a dad.
Right.
It was so strange. They're laying there in bed, and Jerry's mom, like, she always like, oh, we shouldn't be staying with you, we should be staying in a hotel, or like, oh, you can't pay for that, you know. She's always trying to, which is totally the sort of thing my mom would do. She's like, oh, your friend, because Jerry's apparently staying over at Kramer's place. Like, oh, your friend Kramer won't mind. He's like, no, he's making a bouillabaisse, and there's a lot of laughter there, and I have no idea why.
I have no
why
idea
the hell is that
either.
funny? I don't get it.
Do you think that was like a part of the studio audience where the laughter sign came on?
There's a guy who's holding up a sign that says, laugh now.
Laugh now.
I don't get why that's funny. It reminds me of, I've had this thought in the back of my head since we started doing this, but like, in some of the behind the scenes stuff on the DVDs, again, I need to stop talking about these, but like, one of the critiques of the show was, among other things, was that it was too Jewish. And
too Jewish.
Yeah. And first of all, the thought in my head is like, bro.
Bro.
If I was in that conference room when someone said that, I would have given him a bro.
A bro.
Because it's like, we're like saying, oh, this show's pretty good, but it's way too black. You know, it's like, why
what? No.
Holy crap, dude, calm down here. But no, in that perspective, makes me think like, well, is that like a big Jewish thing or something? I don't know. I've never heard of that. I have never really felt that Seinfeld was too Jewish. And there was also like, as if there's such a thing as too Jewish even, but like, in those interviews, they talk with other people who are on staff at NBC, and they're like, I'm Jewish. I didn't think it was too Jewish. There's other people who are like, I'm not Jewish. I didn't think it was too Jewish. So like, where the hell did that comment even come from? Hopefully that guy got fired. But he's making a bouillabaisse. Is that
to imply? First of all, I don't know if is bouillabaisse a Jewish food?
I don't know.
I was going to say, does that imply that Kramer is supposed to be by saying that? Because I don't ever get the opinion that he is in the show. Like it matters, but again, if we're trying to figure out why it's funny, I mean, I guess I'm trying to pick it apart as to why it would be, but
Bouillabaisse is a classic French fish soup with seafood.
well, that is hilarious. I'm just kidding.
I have no idea why this is a funny joke. It's
Yeah.
every bit as funny to me as when you're dead, or whatever the woman says. It's just
Because
like,
I do believe that there's laughter after that line is delivered too.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I've always, as opposed to the whenever you're dead, which I don't think I really zeroed on in until we started looking at this. The Bouillabaisse line I've always noticed, and I've always been like, I don't get it.
I don't get it.
At all. But the thing that cracks me up here is Jerry's mom says, how come nothing materialized there, in reference to Jerry's relationship with Elaine, because he's talking about like, oh, I can't ask Elaine for this person's number or
Right.
where they work or whatever. Jerry's mom's like, well,
So how come nothing materialized there?
And then he says, I don't know. She goes, I know what it was, in a very knowing manner. And Jerry responds by saying, we fight a lot, which they laugh about, because anyone who's been in a long-standing relationship knows that people just fight. That's how it is. But the second thing he says is, there was a problem with the physical chemistry. And they both look taken back by this information. So what the hell did she mean by I know what it was?
Yeah,
I assumed
right.
that she was hinting at something sexual, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then when he says, physical chemistry, they're like, I just don't get that.
Yeah, like, Elaine's like a secret like devil worshiper or something, and it was to keep it under wraps.
I know what it was. It was those chocolate covered cherries that she gave your father that he hated. That's what it was.
That's what it was.
Which again is just like, why? That makes no sense in the scene. Why? Oh, she gave you chocolate covered cherries that you didn't like. It's
Dan
not that-
Marino deserves to die of gonorrhea and rot in hell.
Oh, yeah. Would you like a cookie, son?
Oh, it's little footballs.
It's one of those things where it's like, and not that I feel like every line has to mean something,
Yeah.
but there are so many lines that I find that I'm rewatching.
Why would you leave that in?
Why did you? Yeah. Or, well, I'm not going to talk over. There's other lines that are like this that we're going to talk about later. The pacing in this scene, as in many scenes in these older episodes, very odd pacing, super slow in this scene.
And so they reference, I had this at a later point, but they really reference a lot of celebrities and people in this show, like other people, right? And so they mentioned Sophia Loren and Lonnie Anderson, right? So I didn't know them off like by name. I had to I Googled them just so I was like, oh, okay, so it's this person and that person, right? What is her name? Vanessa, yeah. Doesn't look like either one of those ladies at all, especially Lonnie Anderson. Like, what in the hell are these people? Like, of all of the different celebrities you could have said that she looked like, why are you going with those two people?
Yeah. Well, okay. And I'll explain this a little bit, is that Sophia Loren and Lonnie Anderson were both seen as, during their era, as like beauty icons. And what Jerry's mom is basically saying is, what are you
I feel like this is the moment where you're educating me when I said something stupid.
I was gonna do the Adam blunder across the street. Bring! Did you notice the little sound effect up behind it?
Yes, I already hear it in my head.
But no, I think what she's getting at is like, what are you looking for? Like the absolute cream of the crop in physical beauty or something. And they're implying that it's a physical thing, which again, Jerry kind of rebuts back at, of saying that like, it wasn't that he wasn't attracted to Elaine, just the chemistry wasn't right, you know? Like there have been girls that I've dated in the past that it wasn't that I wasn't attracted to them, but just the chemistry just wasn't there. Just something didn't click. And there really is no explaining it, because you know it when you're in that situation. And but what they're implying is that Elaine wasn't attractive enough for him, essentially. The reason why I was chuckling the whole time you were telling that story is because I debated whether I wanted to say this on the show or not, but I'm like, Lonnie Anderson, I think, is the first woman that I ever realized when I was a child. I'm like, that woman has really big breasts. And it wasn't like I was obsessed with her or anything. I just remember seeing her in something being like, jeez.
Those are huge.
Those aren't buoys. No, but no, I also am with Jerry's dad of like, what's wrong with Lonnie? Because she's like, what are you looking for, Sophia Loren? And then her dad's like, Lonnie Anderson. And she's like, Lonnie Anderson? What the hell's wrong with
Lonnie Anderson and the two little bald gentlemen that she carries around with her at all times.
That so much of this scene just perplexes me. So we'll
Yeah.
just make that another layer on the sandwich. But Jerry's dad has the idea of the stakeout, which to me personally, I think is a pretty darn decent idea.
Classic Seinfeld plan, though.
Yeah,
You know, like there's
Yes,
always some
there's
kind
always
of
a plan.
elaborate thing to accomplish the goal that they're after, right? And it's
This is the way I
Yeah.
see it, though. You stake out a woman, lie about meeting someone in the building, so you have an excuse to ask her out. If it works out and you end up being a couple, months or years or whatever down the road, you've got a really cute story of saying, oh, I lied, I just wanted to meet you again. It's like, oh, you wanted to meet me so bad that you lied. So it's like, it's a win-win. Unless you're with someone who's like, just takes honesty to like the nth degree. It's like, you lied to me. I just wanted to meet you again.
get out.
But again, I don't think the stakeout was all that bad of an idea, to be honest.
No,
with you.
but I mean, again, it was just a whole like, okay, so here's what we do. We're gonna, it's like the caper that they're known for.
So the stakeout not being a bad idea. However, who the hell brings their friend to a situation like this? I get that they probably wanted just to have George in the episode, because up until this point, it hasn't been any George. And they wanted to have him in the episode. But seriously, number one, why would you bring a friend to a situation like this? Number two, why would you bring George Costanza to a situation like this?
Well, it's always nice to have a companion with you during times of duress, so I can get that. And secondly, it's George Costanza. I'm going to look like an amazing person if I'm standing next to George. Like,
True.
you're right. It could get a lot worse than this guy.
True.
I will.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong at all.
And I guess also that's really all Jerry's got for friends. to take with him.
Yeah.
You
Other than
know,
Elaine, and obviously he's not going to take her. And
No.
At this
and,
point,
I mean,
he's also said that Kramer hasn't left the building in 10 years.
in
So-
10 years. Yeah. And, he looks like the homeless guy at the gas station trying to heckle you for a couple bucks. You know what I mean? And going from the first episode, he's got a dog to take care of,
This scene has a few different firsts in it. Do you know what I'm talking
Yes,
about?
I do. I actually have those written down as well. I do have. Don't you think that George is wearing clothes? This is okay. I noticed the clothes in this scene. Did you notice that George is wearing something out of Larry? Like could be right out of Larry David's closet. Like wardrobe forgot to come that day, so Larry David was just like, "Oh, I got this in the back of my car."
That's true. Actually, yeah, I did not notice that, but no, I think I'm with you on that one. I definitely.
I mean, it's like that is a Larry David outfit.
It's a David ensemble
through and through. He's still a realtor, by the way. So we went from pilot to picked up or whatever, obviously, and this being the first like real episode. George is still a realtor, so they didn't change that. The Art Vandelay is the first appearance.
Yeah, this is our first mention of Art Vandelay, who was initially Art Corvalet.
Corvalet.
Art Core,
Art
and then
Core.
Art Corvalet, and then Art
Yeah.
Vandelay, which is who they settled on. So yeah, first Art Vandelay mention. Yeah,
The importer exporter.
first mention of importer exporter. Yep.
Yeah. And I love it that it's a classic George thing to say when she asks him what all he's done as an architect. He talks about the railroads,
Railroads,
and she's like, well, I thought engineers did that. And he's like, they can, like it's clearly like George Blunder achieved.
George Blunder.
Like that's exactly the same level. It's like you say it with confidence, and then somebody just like destroys you right as soon as you say it, and you're like, well, you're right. I didn't really think about that.
Well, that line, I thought engineers do that. Did you notice that she delivered that with a lot of attitude? Like,
Yes.
I thought engineers do that. I'm like, what's with the attitude, lady? What in the world? It's like she was intentionally trying to poke holes in his story. But yeah,
Or she just knew he was full of shit right off the
possibly.
rip.
Well, she does work for lawyers, actually. So, or maybe is a lawyer. Yeah, she said she went to law school, so I'm assuming she's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe she's just going into lawyer mode. That's a good point, actually. But there's one more first that you haven't mentioned. Do you have any others written down?
I don't.
The first mention of George as an architect.
Oh, it's George an architect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, and I love George's line, "Let me be the architect, I can do it." Like right as she's approaching them.
I can do it.
For someone whose entire life is built on lies, George is a really crappy liar.
Yeah, and it's weird that he wants to be an architect in this scene because he has a good job right now.
Yeah.
You know, like in later episodes, he wants to be an architect because he's unemployed and he lives with his parents, and this is like his dream life, you know, that he always wants or whatever. But in this particular instance, he's already doing well for himself. He's giving Jerry relationship advice, so he's obviously pulling in the ladies. You know, he's got a well-paying job in New York City. What's the appeal of being an architect? To sound cooler,
I
suppose. You know, like.
Yeah.
I get it when he's unemployed and worthless, but that would just be like me, not me, but somebody having like a computer programming job, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm the CEO of Raising Cane's." Like, okay.
All right, good for you.
The real life that you have isn't bad. Like.
Last thing I've got for this scene is, so, do you date immature men?
Almost exclusive.
That is a great line.
It is.
In my opinion. I think now it may not work on every woman, but I think on the right woman it would.
The right woman for Jerry.
Exactly. That's what I mean by that. Yeah, the right woman for Jerry. That line I think will work like gangbusters on the person who is going to be the right person. So I think that's a very good setup for the beginning of their very short-lived relationship.
It is a very short-lived relationship, especially for as much on-screen chemistry as they give them.
Yeah.
Between those episodes.
Yeah, they do seem to have a lot of chemistry. They fit together very well. I mean, from the get-go at the party. Yeah. But no, it didn't last long, and of course that kind of thread is followed all the way through the rest of the series. Basically, these people go through women like most people go through toilet paper.
Yeah, and Jerry doesn't seem to give a shit about any of them either. Like, oh yeah, we broke up this afternoon. You want to go get coffee?
Yeah.
Like, he just literally doesn't care at all about anybody.
No,
I respect.
Yeah, there's an aloofness. I respect that. Is that what you said?
It's weird that you say aloof because I have Jerry is aloof that Elaine is still upset.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because this is the scene where he's like, yeah, I don't know. I guess she's still mad. Classic dude answer.
Right.
Whenever their
Classic
girlfriend
dude.
is upset with them still. Like, I don't know. I guess she's still pissed.
She's still mad about something. Bro, she's crazy. That's
Bro, she's crazy, man. Still mad about it.
the total dude response there.
Typical dude answer.
So they're back at the apartment. Jerry's playing Scrabble with his mom. Like 6 times. She's like, "You're such a stickler." Is Jerry being a stickler here?
About not being able to use the dictionary?
Well, yeah, I mean, about everything. Like, she's like using the dictionary, or her being like, "Is so and so a word?" And, all these different things. I mean, it's like, is he being a stickler? Is he just playing by the rules? Or is she just overreacting?
Well, so there was about 2 things that I had with that. And whenever I played as a kid with my brother and sister, like, I think we always used the dictionary to like find words. Like, we didn't use that part of the rules, like where you just had to know the word, because we obviously probably didn't know that many words when we played it as a kid. So like, I thought that was a kind of like a thing with Monopoly. Like, there's so many rules with Monopoly growing up that you played as a kid that aren't the real rules, So it's like, you're laying them down.
Suck at Scrabble. I can spell well. I have a decent vocabulary. I'm terrible at Scrabble. My wife My
I wouldn't
mother,
say that I am an adept by any means.
my mother-in-law is insane at Scrabble, like good, like she's really freaking good. And my wife is good at it as well. I'm just terrible at Scrabble. I don't know what the deal is, but it's like I said, I know the words, I can spell well. I just can't play Scrabble. I'm just horrible at it. And the thing that they do that really pisses me off is they use these words that are like 2-letter words and 3-letter words that are like words that no one in the world knows. And they only know them because like at one time or another, they looked at like a Scrabble dictionary of these are all the 2-letter words and these are all the 3-letter words. They're going to be like a ton of points and stuff like that. And I'm like, you don't know that word. You shouldn't be able to use that word. It's like,
You've never used that word in a sentence ever.
Yeah, if you haven't used that word in conversation in the last month, you don't get to play that word, honey.
I'll give you a year.
I'll give you... No, to the end of the month. Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because Jerry, I think, is kind of being a combination of a stickler, but really he's just trying to follow the rules, and she apparently just sucks at Scrabble, or she kept saying that she doesn't have any letters, but I've been in that point where it's like you have 7 F's. It's like, what the hell am I supposed to make out of this?
So I thought that maybe there's a skit on Family Guy where they're making fun of Seinfeld, and I think it might be from this scene.
All right.
And it's in Family Guy where George and Jerry are talking, and it's just like a snippet, and I'm gonna butcher it, but it's like George is talking to Jerry, and he says, "Well, you see, what happened is that she was a tickler," and Jerry says, "And you're not a stickler for a tickler, not a stickler tickler." And then they just keep saying stickler tickler over and over and over again.
Oh,
so when I heard like all the sticklers, I was like, "Is that the Family Guy stickler tickler moment or whatever?"
Stickler tickler. Oh my gosh.
And I do notice that of all of the things that Kramer eats in every episode or whatever, in every episode, in this particular one, he's leaning over the Scrabble board with a big plastic Tupperware with a salad in it.
Yeah.
He's like, who's just sitting there eating a salad like that? Like, it was just Kramer's just of all, because he always just eats the most random things. He'll come in, take 3 bites of ice cream and leave. And like there's this big thing of salad, which was weird to me. And then, of course, obviously, he makes the thing with the quone. Yeah. When you quone someone.
Quone them.
Yeah, and he says if you got a difficult patient, you quone them. And so I have written down, I was like, what would be good in the comment section of this episode where what does quone mean? So if you know it's to do something to a difficult patient, or whatever, I would like to see some viewer comments of what quone means to a difficult patient.
See, to me, quone, given the context, would be like what ends up happening to Elaine in later episodes, where she basically has like all these horrible notes from the doctor that everyone's like, "Oh, you're fine. We'll see you later."
Like you're blacklisted in the doctor
They're basically
community.
blackballing her from getting any sort of medical treatment. You quoned them.
Oh yeah. I was quoned.
I hope your meeting went well with Art Vandelay.
Vandelay?
Why did they make her deliver the line like that? Or why did she deliver the line like
Maybe because she's never heard of an Art Vandelay in her entire life of knowing Jerry. And so she's like, who in the hell is this person?
I just don't know why you would question that coming right out of the gate. But yeah, the way she's like, Art Vandelay?
I mean, I could see that though. If I like fielded a phone call for my wife Ashley, and it was like by this name I had never heard, and she comes home, I'm gonna be like, "Yeah, you got a phone call from Kim Weaver? Do you know who that is?" And she'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's somebody for so and so, or whatever." Like,
okay, so you're saying more of just a name you've never heard before, not
this you've never heard is
a
like,
name
yeah,
that you didn't know existed. Like you got a call from Bill Fartburger.
Fartburger? Yeah. Like, oh yeah, Bill Fartburger. He's the guy from the like I think it was based coming from a sense of like, who the is Art Vandelay? Like.
And another celebrity reference. Who am I, Rich Little?
Who am I, Rich Little?
I had to Google who Rich Little was.
I did too.
He is the man of 1,000 voices.
Bro, I'm gonna take a picture of this shit because I have Rich Little joke -- had to Google that shit, bro.
I also had no idea. I'm like, Rich Little.
Because I did have to Google that.
But yeah, I don't know if it's it may just be that these are antiquated references, given that the show's freaking old or what. But yeah, it was just kind of like, okay, whatever. But
and like the thing is like I feel like I'm the appropriate age to be a Seinfeld fan, right? But some of these references, I'm just like, this is beyond me. I don't know.
Yeah,
You know?
I think, but yeah, no, I get you. I think folks like ourselves or our age, 40s ish, are like the prime Seinfeld fans. But I think the ones who would have really gotten all the references would have been maybe not necessarily folks our parents' age, but like
me, like 60,
what
55,
Like
55, 60 years old now.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I think I would go a little younger than that, but no, I get what you're saying though. But yeah,
Like 10 years older than us, 15 years older than us, 20, somewhere in that bracket.
Yeah.
The generation ahead of us. Let's say
generation ahead of us. Yeah. But yeah, to some of these references, it's just like, wow, okay.
Yeah, weird. I can't even laugh at this because I don't know who that is.
I need a low main. I'm like, why is that funny? I don't know. I just like how he delivers it. That's what makes it.
Yeah, it's like playing the bicentennial version of Trivial Pursuit. When you get those questions and you're like, I don't even feel bad. I don't even know who the hell that is. Yeah.
On all the while, Morty's over there shining his shoes, which is like the ultimate father thing to do. Because I just remember my dad shining it. Like, seems like a lot of work.
Which Jerry's later dad, I don't think would ever do.
No, I don't think he would actually. Yeah, but again, this father he's like the antithesis of who Morty Seinfeld became. Like, not funny, not big and exaggerated, just very, very fatherly, down to earth. Apparently likes big breasts. Lonnie Anderson.
Very proud of my son. That kind of dad. The patriarch, if you will.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So the next scene, they're still in Jerry's apartment, but obviously time has passed. Uncle Mac, be careful. What do you say in his next act? Did I tell you I'm writing an autobiography?
The autobiography?
It's based on all my experiences. I'm just like, why are these lines in here? They don't make a whole lot of sense, and they're for people who are never in the show ever again.
Yeah, it's just like that lady that says, you should come to where I work if you want a sitcom, or something like that. And I have all those lines that you said and this one all written down, and then they're all grouped into I hate small talk in a capital letters, because those are all things that people say when they're making small talk, like you meet somebody casually talking at a party or whatever, like those, I can't escape it. Like, as much as I hate it, like I still do it. I had a bunch of Ashley's family over last weekend, and I had food catered from my job, right? So all the guests are there and I'm unpacking it all, and they're like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. And I'm like, yeah, I worked hard on it all day. It's that kind of line where it's just like, you just say it and like, it's a bad joke, but people still laugh at it. Like, oh, if you really want a sitcom, you should come into my job.
I kind of see, like, that line I kind of feel like is one that Jerry probably really wanted in there, because he probably gets that comment a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But then also, like his uncle comes up, careful, he'll put you in his next act.
Right.
I mean, that's something like a chummy thing to say in, conversation like that. Just the lame dad joke in there.
How about this one? I don't know why, but I've always liked this line. But again, it's another one where I'm like, well, I don't get why you put this in the show, but like, hey, this is my cousin Artie Levine. Levine. How in the heck do you think he wouldn't know how to pronounce your name correctly? Or how big of an idiot is Jerry to not know how his cousin's name is pronounced? I don't know why that cracked me up so much, but like the Levine. But that gets me every time. But again, I'm just like, why was that a line? Because it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
There's no reason for them to have any sort of contention about the dude's name.
And
he never
see
appears
him
in the show again.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I still think it's funny. But I'll tell you one thing though. I like the way that Jerry and Elaine handled the awkwardness in this scene. because he's like, do you want to do this now or do you want to do this later? And then they just dive right into it, talk about it. Because that's one thing that people are just horrible at handling awkwardness. And I tell my wife this all the time and stuff. I was like, I choose not to be awkward. So like, if there's crap that needs to get dealt with, I'm gonna deal with it, and I'm not gonna feel awkward about it for no other reason than simply I choose not to be. If anyone's gonna feel awkward about it, that's on them, but it's not on me, and I'm not gonna be awkward about it because I don't give a crap.
Right.
And so I think it's really super mature the way they handled that interaction. They agree to talk about other people in front of each other. I think in this scene it's funny because they kind of blow right past it, but I feel like we're seeing a pretty big step in Jerry and Elaine's relationship. And
like you said, I don't think that people do that enough.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, we just need to address this. You want to do that?
I hate something I hate more than anything is when like you either do something that hurts someone else's feelings, or they perceive something that you did in the wrong way and it hurts their feelings, and like they kind of cut you off but never say anything about it. It's almost like a shadow ban. And then you find out later on that they're upset about this thing. It's like, bro, why didn't you talk to me about this? And then you explain the truth, and then they're like, oh, okay, that's not a big deal, and blah, blah, blah.
They cloned you for no reason.
They cloned you for no freaking reason. Recently, it's funny because I was joking about something in a stream recently, and I got to thinking about it afterwards because I'm an obsessive person. I went back and watched the film, and I'm like, I kind of feel like I was griping at this person. And this is one of my regular viewers and stuff, and they're in my Discord. So given that they're in my Discord, I message them and I'm like, hey, when I said this thing, this is how I felt about it, but then I felt differently about it afterwards. I watched the video. I kind of feel like maybe I might have said something that could have offended you. If you're offended or not, I don't know. But if I did, I feel bad about that and I'm sorry or whatever. And the person was like, no, you're cool, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's just like, I hate the whole thing of being improperly
Yeah, but wouldn't you
cloned.
rather know than not know?
Oh, absolutely.
Because what I'll do I'm like you. I would rather approach the subject and just have the person tell me what's going on, or else I'm going to make up my own version of what's going on and believe that. And I guarantee 9 times out of 10, this is worse than what really happened.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So I really like the way that this scene plays out because I love the way they handled it, and like I said, I feel like it's a huge step in their relationship that we're seeing right on camera, because up until this point there have already been huge steps in their relationship that we never got to see.
Yeah, and maybe that's why they are able to become friends through it all at the end, because they are able to have these type of conversations rationally with each other and both be like, you know what, you're right, let's do this, or move on. Maybe that's the secret. Maybe people don't do that enough. Seinfeld was ahead of its time.
Exactly. And the scene ends with them essentially talking about this new aspect of their relationship. This was my final note, at least on this particular subject, is the episode's called The Stakeout, but it's really more about Jerry and Elaine's relationship than it is about the stakeout at all.
Right.
Which is highlighted again in the final stand-up scene. Is like as much as it's called The Stakeout and a lot of the story revolves around the stakeout, it's really Jerry and Elaine's relationship that's the subject.
The stand-up at the end contains my favorite line of the show. And I think that is genius of Jerry when he compares it to two magicians. Show it like trying to fool the other one.
Oh, is this your card?
Man, that literally made me laugh out loud. When he was like pulls a rabbit out of the hat, and the other guy's like, "Yeah, so I think I guess your card." It's what a great way to put those two things. That comparison is fantastic, and that's one of the many reasons why I love Seinfeld, is just for moments like that, of how he's just able to make it relatable.
Right. Two other things here in the apartment. Number one, we get Elaine Marie Benez, which I don't know if we ever hear Elaine Marie Benez ever again, but
maybe in court.
Yeah, you're right, maybe. And then Wall Street, high finance,
High
bulls,
finance.
bears, people from Connecticut.
People from Connecticut.
That line always gets me, which I think is also in the running for what my favorite line of the episode is. Your favorite line, I think, has a little more substance than mine. I've mentioned in this episode already a few different contenders, but I think I'm going to settle on, he's a public fornicator. That's my favorite line. Cause it's
He's a fine boy.
What a way to say that. You know?
He's a public fornicator.
Such good stuff. Oh my gosh. Which, I mean, to kind of tie all this together though, I understand why this episode did as well as it did. Apparently NBC pushed pretty hard for this to be the first episode, which if you compare this to male unbonding, this is absolutely, I think, the stronger episode. I think there's a lot. My notes on male unbonding are freaking nuts already. Yeah, male unbonding is a really complex episode, but not nearly as strong as this one. I don't think. It definitely plays out a whole nother relationship thing and the complexity, but like, obviously, Jerry's friend doesn't come back again in the show. Spoiler alert, in case you've never seen this 30-year-old TV show. And so there's a lot lower stakes and such. But I guess all this to go back to just say I think NBC made the right call by really pushing for this one to go first. But it does kind of create a little bit of confusion when you go back and watch them and realize, oh, this actually happened, at least in the writers' minds. This thing happened first, and then this other thing didn't. So to kind of bring this to a close here, Adam, how many Ovaltines do you want to give the Stakeout? The idea is just to rate the episode on its own merit, not saying anything about what it did for the future of the series or anything like that, just simply, and it's not even necessarily how funny it is, it's just how good of an episode it is. Scoring it up for the way that it handled that relationship thing between Jerry and Elaine at the end, you know?
Yeah.
You could give it points for that, which isn't necessarily really a funny thing, so.
No, and I think that's really the only thing that saves this episode for me in terms of like making it more of an important episode as a whole. If we were going funny, I was gonna give it a 2 out of 5 Ovaltines, but overall, I'm giving it a 3 out of 5. Just as a whole general episode, just because I do think that it does establish a lot for Jerry and Elaine moving forward from this. But overall, not very funny of an episode, really, aside from a couple things,
Right.
you know, that made me laugh. But yeah, this wouldn't be on one of my must-watch lists. Let's say that.
Yeah, for sure. The episode definitely had some moments, and I think we kind of called those out here, of things where it's like, oh, that's a really funny line, or I really like the way they delivered that, or you know, like I said, or even just to harken back to the whole Jerry Elaine interaction and stuff like that. Again, not a super funny episode, but it still has its merits. I think I'm going to go slightly more generous than you, and I kind of feel like I have to fluff it up a little bit and say a 5, because I gave the pilot a 4, and I can't give this the same as the pilot, because the pilot is almost unwatchable for me, just because of how good the rest of the series is.
Oh man, I keep forgetting that we're doing it out of 10. I did it out of 5 again.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Well, so what did you say? You said 2, so then that would make it a 4.
So I mean, a 4 out of 5.
So you said 4 out of 5?
4 out of 10. 4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. Sorry.
4 out of 10.
4 out of 10. And I said 5 out of 10. So that's a 4.5 average for the two of us.
And we're going to put that number right here.
Actually, I think it goes down here.
Oh.
I'm going to make sure that it comes on the screen when you're like, right here. So it makes you look like really dumb and puts on.
You wouldn't do that to me. Not
yeah,
you.
I got my cool little graphic that I found and put on the bottom. You would not believe how hard I searched for a really great Ovaltine ad to use for that little thing at the bottom.
You nailed it, my friend.
Yeah, I was very happy with it. So yeah. So anyways, yeah, so average 4.5 Ovaltines, 4 from Adam, 5 from yours truly. I think that's a decent score for this episode. Not a bad episode. Definitely a lot more watchable than the pilot. But still not a great episode.
You just really didn't like George in episode 1, and that's okay.
Man, I really think that this episode would have taken more hits if it had more George in it. Because, yeah, in these early episodes, George is insufferable. Now, he's insufferable in the later episodes, but you laugh at him the whole time.
But in a funny way.
In these early episodes, I'm just like, shut the hell up, George. So, yeah. We hope you come back and watch future episodes. If you haven't watched the first episode of Welcome to Del Boca Vista, go back and check that out. Make sure you hit that like button. Leave us a comment.
Give us your quone definition.
We will quone you. I'll get right up in it. We will quone you if you don't smash that like button. No, if you don't
and
press
listen to the Tootsie Roll.
Yeah, let us know about that because I still have no idea. I'm gonna Google that when we're done here, and see what the hell you're talking about. Because like, it's either gonna be one of those things where I'm like, oh, it's that thing.
It's gonna be that because you've heard.
Or,
if you've been to a single wedding in your life, you've heard it.
I don't know. I feel like the weddings I've gone to have probably been less hip than the weddings you.
Have you lost it, man?
Oh, bro. But yeah, hit the like button for us if you would. It really helps us out. Drop a subscription if you would like to see more of this. We're shooting to get these episodes up every other week. It's a little bit more of an undertaking than our regular content. So that's why they're not coming out every single week. If these really catch on, maybe we'll do them weekly. We'll see. But
we have to think critically during these episodes, and it takes us a long time to do that.
Well, we're like making notes and stuff beforehand. It's like, this is like practically homework.
Yeah.
But no, we appreciate you guys watching and hope you will stick around, and we will see you on the next W2DBV.
Oochie mama!
Have you lost it, man?
God, I hate that line.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.